Welcome back. Glad you could join us. We have with us once again the biggest shitbag I've ever met, Gideon. How are you, Gideon?
Hey, guys.
Thank you for proving my point. Now, I got a question. Have you ever heard of a band called Pink Floyd?
Pink Floyd, yeah.
Okay, you like Pink Floyd?
They're good.
We need to talk. I'm really glad that G could join us again. It was a pleasure having you last time, and I think this time we're going out of the realm of philosophy and into the realm of Pink Floyd, which is music, it's art, and I think it gives us a completely different venue to go towards, while at the same time still being able to follow a lot of the same thought processes.
And honestly, I think Pink Floyd is more than music.
It's definitely the transformer of music. More than meets the ear.
Like Bumblebee?
Like Soundwave.
Oh. Not like Optimus Prime.
That's all the ones I know.
How about this question? Do you have to listen to Pink Floyd high before you really understand them?
Vera? Yes. Actually, you need to be on Ambien for that one. But then it's the greatest song they've ever written.
It took me maybe 5 years to understand Vera.
Well worth it.
I don't know, Vera.
Oh, it's Off the Wall.
Oh, okay.
You've heard of The Wall?
Yeah, I've heard the Wall. I probably heard the song and just don't know the album track.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
By name.
What do you know about Pink Floyd? What, you can start us off.
Well, I want to know y'all's answer to that last question.
We had a question?
Well, do you have to get high before you understand Pink Floyd, right? Because you don't really hear of many Pink Floyd fans or people who appreciate Pink Floyd who haven't listened to them high at least once, right? And even if we do or have reached a point where we appreciate them and like listening to them sober, is sort of maybe tied to a connection that we had when on a drug experience.
And does it reach a new level once you get high?
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't quite know. I don't think you need drugs for Pink Floyd to be good. I do think it helps because drugs help everything.
And now this is a message to the little kids. Drugs help everything.
I mean, can't get an erection, drugs help it.
They can get an erection, drugs.
Drugs will help you stop getting erections.
I've gotten high and listened to Pink Floyd, so I think that kind of rules out the ability for me to say if like you need to listen to it in high in order to appreciate it, because how can I judge like not listening to it high when I have listened to it high?
Well, I mean, I didn't smoke pot until I was like 22, 23. So I had listened to Pink Floyd for a good while sober. But I will say that maybe it is intangible, but something about it elevated the music. But it kind of elevates music in general.
Would you say that you were, say, noticing more about the music?
Yeah, exactly. More of what they were getting at. I think is it well recorded that they liked drugs as well?
No, they did not. Okay, so this gets a little confusing here, because obviously Sid Barrett liked drugs a lot. Mm-hmm. They used alcohol. They smoked. Mm-hmm. But as far as the harder drugs, there's no real evidence they were into it, and they said they weren't into it. There's evidence that David Gilmour was into coke for a while. And also, I think Waters said that he did acid, back in the 60s when Sid Barrett was in the band. And that didn't go so well for them. So as far as we can tell, they weren't like big drug users, or if they were, it's mostly stims, but not to like produce. It's just for the fuck of it.
So no marijuana.
To be fair, you said that they smoked and they drank, and we were talking about weed. So the real answer to that question would be yeah.
Well, not
but
marijuana.
you wanted to clarify that it wasn't all drugs.
Yeah, and not marijuana, as far as we know. Not marijuana.
Really? Yeah. So you meant cigarettes?
Yeah, smoked cigarettes.
Says they smoked and means cigarettes.
I don't know. Like I feel like that's like studio culture. Like, was there any musical act that was big in the 60s and 70s that didn't smoke weed in the studio?
I don't think that Roger Waters could have sung the way he did if he didn't smoke at very least cigarettes.
David Gilmour, he used to be a very big cigarette smoker. He eventually had to quit because his voice was getting way too raspy. And so you actually see a difference in his voice over, I think it's the 70s and 80s. Or it might be even 90s. I don't quite know when, but you actually see a difference.
Division Bell.
Great album.
With the Division Bell, especially like Live 8 with the concert he does, his voice is so silky smooth, like so much smoother than before. It's amazing.
That was probably drugs. So I think that when we were talking about the fact that weed, when you're smoking it and you're listening to Pink Floyd, it adds something to Pink Floyd. Personally, I feel like all music sounds a little bit better when I'm high because I'm able to really get into it in a more like emotional way, even and like shut my mind off almost and just kind of like feel the music. But Pink Floyd is on a different level than other music. Like, all music's better, but Pink Floyd's like 10 better versus, if you could put a number to it, versus all other music being like 3 better.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Pink Floyd is, touched on it a second ago, but there's a lot of tones in there that aren't necessarily created from one individual place, like a vocal or a guitar or any instrument, and more so the combination of them and a lot of experimenting with that. So I think that's where sort of the drugs come into play, right? You're touching on like those tones that don't really have an exact spot, but are more of a summation of other things put together.
So, just to clarify, when you say tones, what do you mean by tones exactly? Like emotional tones, like tones with sounds?
I think the actual sound tones. I mean, I do agree with the emotional part of being high and listening to music. But I also feel like I'm hearing things in a different way, and I can generally focus on little specific things, right? So if there's a bass line in a song I like or whatever, I have a much easier time honing in on that and staying on that, picking out individual parts of the music. And I can also, close my eyes and just let everything flow through me.
Mm-hmm. And do you think part of that is maybe being high kind of allows you? I don't want to go with a general kind of stoner kind of thing, but it's like you don't want to do much when you're stoned, right?
Yeah.
So when you're stoned, you might just be too lazy to like do other things, and music's really good, so you just gotta sit there and analyze it, Whereas if you're listening to it, not stoned, you might be, cleaning, or it might be.
Yeah. You drift off to other places.
Although a lot of that can come down to what exactly you're smoking, if you're doing edibles, if it's a sativa or indica. I think all of that would play a role, but we're talking about Pink Floyd, not weed, so we'll save that for another episode.
Episode number 25.
Number 25. Number
420.
425.
420? Why not episode 420? No, 420 is way too far.
Season 4, episode 20.
Oh, that's good. Okay,
Like
we're gonna start having seasons. This one's summer.
Spring right now.
Oh shit, you're right. I don't know. Okay, Gideon, what's your favorite album?
Metal.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you go a little more in depth? Talk about it.
I think we were talking earlier, and Nate said he really likes Animals, and I was really big on Animals for a while, and then I think as I've grown up, I've got a little bit of intrigue with pop music, and I find that the early songs on that album are very pop oriented. I'm a huge Beatles fan, so they've got like a real nice Beatles vibe to them, the harmonies, etc. But then it also has echoes at the end of it, right, which is sort of that long song vibe feel. Probably one really well appreciated while high, because it sort of goes through a lot of different range of emotion. But it's sort of an album that the side A and side B of it are very different.
Is that the album with Seamus?
Yes.
That song's fucked.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's a live version of the song where Gilmore actually has a live dog with him that howls.
great.
What other?
Why is that song fucked?
What other band has used a dog as an instrument besides the Baha Men?
Fuck, I was going there.
Have you ever heard
No.
Good Morning by the Beatles? Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, like at the end of that song, they've got like a cacophony of animal sounds.
Is it
But
really?
is that like an outro, or are they like instruments? Like they use the dog as an instrument.
Yeah, I think in Good Morning it's more of a sound
I
effect.
don't know if it's an instrument. It's more of like an aesthetic, right? I think they're trying to. They're still a little close to their blues roots on metal, and they're trying to get that sort of like on your front porch vibe to it, right? Like an old blues man on his front porch playing
Definitely.
guitar.
Definitely.
Is that why dogs are kind of like a meme within the blues kind of genre? Because like,
Yeah, like on your porch with the dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dog's howling, and you're just trying to play music.
I guess like a guitar kind of howls.
Yeah.
I still think that the dog is more like an instrument, the same way that a singer's voice is an instrument, and I think they use it in that sense. Are they what they're trying to get at with it, and going back to those roots of blues, which by the way, love bluesy Pink Floyd, but anyway, I don't think that changes the fact that they still used it as an instrument.
You know, I agree with Steve on this for sure. The dog in that song is such an instrument. I think there's other songs where it's more of an effect. Or we can even take songs that use kind of if you go on a lot of keyboards, they have a drum set, and a lot of times there'll be actually a dog effect on the key set or on the key, and you could use that for like a. You could use that if you wanted to, but it's more like a little cliche effect.
It's a gimmick, right?
Yeah, it's a gimmick. It's not really like. You might see it even on a popular song, but you know it's a gimmick, obviously.
Well, like, how about like a song? I listen to a good deal of like older music, and maybe in like some of these like sad songs or songs with sadder themes, they have like the sound of rain, right, playing through it. Is like, could we say that the rain is like an instrument in the same way?
If they're using it as an instrument, absolutely.
I mean, this might be a little artistic in itself, but I think it's more of a setting than an instrument.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how I feel about the dog in Seamus. Is like, I don't know, like, if he's like, he's not necessarily like hitting notes that are like in key, right? It's sort of like a dog like howling along while you play the song.
You don't need to be in key to be an instrument.
Well, yeah, but to be an instrument like in the song, right? Any other sense, right? If they were like close miking that dog or something, it would sound a lot more awkward.
So where the mic is dictates whether it's an instrument or not.
Well, no, just like how it's introduced in the production, right? It's not the sound bites of the dog in that song are not done in the same way that the vocals and the guitar are done.
So you're saying that their intention was not to have it say be an instrument, rather a additional kind of overlay.
An aesthetic.
And yeah, okay. Kind of like with the aesthetic example, it's more of a setting to these. Yeah, that's your point.
Exactly. It's like the rain, or sometimes they do it with they might play it with a guitar, right? But like something like the helicopter sounds and like Saucer Full of Secrets and stuff like that. It's more aesthetic. I'm using it like an aesthetic, like futuristic sound.
Agree to disagree at this point. What's your favorite song? And it may not even be off of the same album.
Let me think about that for a second. Nate, go first.
Nathan?
Okay, I'll give my own. It's gonna be Dogs, off of, Animals, of course.
Yeah.
And the thing I really love about that one song is the dragged down by the stone, the stone, the stone. It goes on for like 3 minutes. And it's a part that when I first listened to it, I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? I mean, what is going on? Like, why are they doing this?
Then you smoke some pot. And
Is 3 minutes hyperbolic? I think it is. I think it was probably like 30 seconds.
Bit. Maybe like a 2 minutes.
Well, maybe
I haven't heard it long.
You can also hear like the early working of the wall in that song.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? That's
yeah.
very wallish.
Especially Sheep.
Yeah.
Sheep, off that album, it's very wallish. It's like it sounds almost like the part where we need to get out to prison, from off of what was it, Run?
And Animals is your favorite album.
Yeah,
So your favorite song happens to come off of your favorite album.
Yeah, they go inside. The Comfortably Numb is also a high up there because let's put it this way: I made a whole full-fledged cover of that song,
And it's amazing, by the way. It sounds just like it from the guitar standpoint, and then you got a professional singer to do that part as well, and you guys added in your own guitar solos, and it absolutely rocks your socks off.
That was quite the sell.
And you can find it somewhere.
At soundcloud.com/npepin or just Pepin.
Hashtag shameless.
It will be in the description.
What is this, a fucking YouTube video? There ain't no description, bitch.
No.
There will be.
No.
Oh,
It's podcast.
okay.
So podcast, you can have an RF description in there.
Oh, where do you put it?
All right. I want to give 2 answers, right? Because I don't want to cop Nate's, but it reminded me the one that I used to always say it was Pigs, 3 different ones. And it's
Careful.
off Animals. Like I said, I went through a real big Animals phase. There's something about that song, specifically the motif. You are right. But if the other one I would go with is Fearless off of Metal.
I was trying to think of that name earlier, and that's one that's very kind of soft.
Yeah, it's got the Liverpool fans singing at the end.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. That's one of the few times I feel like uplifted from a song.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, fuck yeah.
Now, are the Liverpool fans used like are they an instrument?
No, they're not. That
They're
is an
setting.
aesthetic. That is like an artistic sort of thing to it, because like it fades out into that, and they're singing a completely different song.
Are vocals an instrument?
Yes,
So why is the crowd not an instrument?
because they are. You kind of feel like the crowd is there during your song. After first couple times you've heard it, and then they kind of pipe up a little bit.
Well, I mean, like imagine, like say, Another Brick in the Wall, right? The chorus is singing the song. It's the same chord structure, the same lyrics, right? So clearly, they're more like a part of the arrangement, the composition. Whereas here, the Liverpool fans, they're singing what's that Liverpool song? Never Walk Alone, right? By old Rodgers and Hammerstein song. Old Greg, yeah. But it's like fading out as an aesthetic. It doesn't really match the rest of the song per se in terms of chord structure and sound.
But just to kind of not change subjects, but Steve, why exactly would you call it a instrument in this case? I mean, are you just trying to get at why isn't an aesthetic, or why isn't an instrument? Do you have an argument for why it might be, say, an instrument?
I guess I don't understand your definition of an aesthetic versus an instrument. To me, anything that's creating that's an individual sound that is following along with the music or adding to the music in some way, be it adding something that's what word did you use, like the scenery or
Yeah, the setting.
the setting? Yeah, like if it's adding to the setting, that's I mean, it's not like a one short little sound clip like the glass shattering in whatever the name of that song is from The Wall, where he throws the TV out the window. That's a sound effect. But when it's something that's actually going along with the song and adding something to it, that to me is an instrument.
Well, I think that's the difference, is like it's more on like the literary side of music, right? Where it's more of a poetic statement than part of the melody.
Okay, I came up with a good analogy for my, definition of this at least. So imagine someone makes like an art piece, right? Like a painting, right? So the work of art is obviously the painting, right? And that's the instrument to which the piece is carried. Now, where you put that piece of art matters a lot. So if you put that in, say, a professional art gallery, it might look good. You might put it around on a yellow wall. You could put it in some kind of on the street, on the wall, and you could put it on a beach. So where you put it kind of changes the impact of the art. And it's not that the setting is irrelevant to the piece, but it kind of changes, enhances it, adds to it.
The setting isn't the piece itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's say that you brought up rain earlier. Let's say that you have rain in the background of a song. You're saying that's a setting.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think it's like part of like that song would work without it, right? It would still be the parts of it that are appealing would still exist without that setting present.
But you're taking something out of the song.
Well, I mean, like this one specifically, Fearless, right? If you take out the Liverpool fans at the end, it still works.
But it changes it. Fundamentally, it changes it.
I mean, it changes like the flow, but I don't think it changes. Like when they play that song live, right? They can't have all the Liverpool fans following them around, but it still works.
I think, to go with my analogy again, it's like, imagine you have a beautiful painting and you put it, where the ocean is, right? That painting might not look very good with the ocean. You might have another painting that looks fantastic with the ocean, right? Now, let's imagine another setting, let's say, like I said, on a street corner or something. The painting might look very, very cool with that street corner right there. Now, does the painting look cool without the street corner in, say, some neutral setting? Yeah, it probably does. It's enjoyable and it's by itself, and the piece is, the painting itself. But putting it in a different setting might enhance or detract from it.
I argue that if you're purposely thinking about the setting of the piece of art, it is a part of the piece of art.
I mean, I think here it's almost like a matter of post-production, right? That when that song was composed, it wasn't like, oh, we need the outro. Like, they didn't, like, play that outro of the Liverpool fans singing and be like, all right, here's how the song goes. Like, when they wrote that song, pen to paper, the chord changes, etc., the lyrics, it wasn't like, and end with the Liverpool fans.
And how do you know that? How do you know that wasn't part of it? Okay, so to get back to my question, so you're saying that rain is a setting. Now, what if you have the exact same thing, but instead of physical rain, you have an instrument that sounds like rain? Is it then an instrument?
Like a rain stick.
Exactly. Is it then an instrument, or is it still a setting?
It depends. It's all contextual. It's sort of like Nate's analogy, right?
I still argue if you're purposely putting a painting in a specific colored wall because that'll add something to it, the wall becomes a part of the piece.
Okay, let's go with another analogy, because I agree with the general point you're making, Steve, for certain, which is that they're packaging the piece as one artistic thing. But the other analogy I was going to go with is, let's imagine you buy a product, right? And you open up the product, and it's got some very nice packaging, very functional packaging, and you really like the packaging, and it definitely enhances the product, right? But you didn't buy the product for the packaging. The packaging is kind of an add-on to it.
First off, I've definitely bought products for their packaging because I don't want to have to own a pair of scissors to open a pair of scissors, if you know what I mean. Like, sometimes they have those clamshell ones that are impossible to open and you like need a pair of scissors to open them. But beyond that, like I think that that's apples and oranges. I don't think that's the same thing.
I mean, I guess the question here is like musically, does it work without it? And I think most things, in almost every direction, it points to yes, right? And you know, they play that song live, and it works, and it sounds great. And they don't need that same. Now they were going for a specific angle, right, when they included that on the album. But when it's excluded, it's not like the piece feels bare. You know, that's like it's an add-on. It's not the meat of it.
It's not about how much does it change it. It's about the fact that it changes it all. To me, so like, would the X song sound good without the bass line? It might very well sound good without the bass line, but is it going to sound as good as if you had the bass line? And the piece as a whole, when it's put together, they add those things for a reason. If there's no reason to add it, then it's not a part of the piece.
I mean, I think like the bass line is like that's something like a little more critical and intended, right?
Well, to go on to the previous point about what's the instrument versus what's the setting, or you know, an effect. The bass is obviously an instrument and adds something musically to the piece. Now you could say a setting or like a rain sound effects. Add something artistically to it. Add something to an enjoyment of it, packaging of it, or just just added to it. But it doesn't actually have a musical component to it. There's no like pitch. There's no tonality. There's no rhythm. There's no.
Of course there is. You could have fast rain, slow rain, heavy rain. Like you could have fucking snow sound effects. Like
what does snow sound?
Sounds like chimes tinkling, like real. My point is that just because it's not a traditional instrument doesn't mean it's not an instrument. And I think that fundamentally we're getting down to semantics and the definition of what an instrument really is. But I think like your traditional instruments can set the stage the same way that adding in something like rain can do.
Yeah, see, I'm tempted to agree with you because I agree with you on, say, the abstract level. But on the practical level, you know, if someone said, oh, yeah, I made this nice rain instrument here and just, like, recorded some rain and, you know, gave me the song, like, no, this is rain. This isn't a song. This isn't, you know. It couldn't stand on its own. If they added rain to a song, I might say, this sounds cool, this sounds good. Or I might say, you need a better backdrop for this. You know, you're putting it to the wrong kind of setting.
I would never listen to just a bare drum track.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do, right?
I will say that's a good point, though. That's a good counter argument. So
all I'm gonna say, because you said it's good, so I'm gonna stop.
Okay. And
do we want to agree to disagree?
well,
I mean, there's more to talk on.
we might come back to this because that was a good point, and I don't quite have an answer. But anyway, we'll come back to that because, you know, we of course need to talk.
Talk.